Magandang araw mga bata, isang araw na naman na puno ng kaalaman tungkol sa science. Tara, mag-aral na tayo. Ngayong araw na to mga bata, isang makabuluhang talakayan na naman tungkol sa science. Pero huwag kalimutan mag-subscribe at i-click ang bell button. Tara, aralin natin ang ways of separating mixtures. What is separation? Separation means removal of substances from a mixture of two or more substances. Example, separating stones from rice, separating tea from tea leaves, separating calf from the grains. Why do we separate substances? To obtain two different but useful components, to remove non-useful components, to remove impurities or harmful components, and to group substances of different size. Here are some methods of separation. 1. Threshing, used for separating grains from stalks. Machine can also be used for the process. 2. Winnowing, used to separate heavier and lighter components of a mixture. 3. Hand-picking, used for separating large-size impurities like stone and husk from rice, wheat, and pulses. 4. Sieving, used when components of a mixture have different sizes. Other methods of separation. Sedimentation, separation of two components in such a way that heavier substances settles down. Look at the example. The lighter liquid is on the top, while the heavier substances is on the bottom. Decantation, the process of pouring out the clear upper liquid without disturbing the sediments. Filtration, separation of solids from liquids either by using a filter paper or a strainer. For example, separating tea from tea leaves, we use a strainer for separating it, while mud from water, we use a filter paper. Evaporation. Evaporation is used when we want to get a substance that has been dissolved. Example, getting salt out of salty water. The salty water is put into an evaporating basin. It is left in a warm place and water evaporates, leaving behind the salt crystal. Condensation. Condensation is the process by which a substance changes from gas phase to the liquid phase. Water vapor condenses into liquid water after making contact with the surface of a cold bottle. Question: can water dissolve any amount of substance? Answer: water dissolves different amount of soluble substances, like sugar. A saturated solution is one in which no more of that substance can be dissolved. Tara mga bata, para lubusan nating maintindihan at maunawaan ang iba't ibang paraan para mag-separate ng mixture, panoorin natin to.
Kevin and Tina are on a road trip with their parents. This lesson is about various methods of separation. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain the reasons for separating substances. You will also be able to describe the methods of separation of substances such as hand-picking, threshing, winnowing, and sieving.
Looks like we have a problem with the car. The engine is overheated. Don't know why. I'll have to get a mechanic.
Hey, Tina, look. We have stopped right near someone's farmland. I wonder if we can take a walk and see it up close. Dad, can we go up to those huts and take a look at this farm while you fix the car?
Okay, but be careful and don't go too far. Your mom and I will keep an eye on you both from here.
Hello, who are you?
Our car has broken down nearby, but our dad is working on it. We just came by to take a look at your farm. Would you mind?
Not at all. In fact, I can show you around if you're interested. Let me just finish cleaning these grains.
Cleaning the grains? How do you do that?
Well, I'm just picking out the impurities in these grains by hand. The grains are quite big in size, and the amount of grain that I need to clean is not much. So I can do that quite easily. Hand picking allows me to separate the good grains from the waste and impurities, so that I have clean dal to cook for dinner tonight.
Hand picking is the basic method for separation of substances. It involves simply picking out substances by hand and separating them from others. The substances being separated may be impurities that have to be thrown away, like in this case. Or it may be that both the substances being separated are useful, such as if you separate green grapes from black ones from a mixture of the two.
I'm done hand-picking these grains. Let's take a walk around the farm now. As you can see, these are wheat fields. The wheat is ready for harvest now. Look, there's my husband.
What is he doing?
He's threshing some of the wheat that has been harvested and dried.
Threshing? What's that?
Yes. Once the wheat has been harvested, the stalks are dried. Then, each grain of wheat has to be separated from the stalks to which it's attached, so that it can be ground into flour. This method of separating the grain from the stalk is called threshing. It's basically the beating of these dry stalks to shake off the dried grains. It can be done by hand, by cattle, or by using machines. Traditionally, threshing was done by hand, but the cattle helped do this job quickly. Nowadays, threshing machines are also used to separate large quantities of grain at a time. We have one of these machines. It's called a combine harvester. You can see it there in the distance.
This is a smart way to separate grain from stalk. Imagine how long this would take if the grain had to be hand-picked off the stalks.
Once the wheat has been threshed, all that's left to do is grind it into wheat flour, right?
Not quite. There is another step before that. You see, even though the large stalks can be separated from the grains by threshing, the wheat grains still have dried husk and chaff, which has to be separated and thrown away before the wheat can be ground.
But can that be done by hand-picking?
No. It would be too difficult and would take too much time. Instead, we use a method called winnowing. Let me show you. In this basket, I have some wheat grains that are still mixed with their husk. Watch what happens now.
The husk is blowing away.
That's right. the husk is much lighter than the grain. So when I shake it gently and let it drop to the ground, only the wheat grains collect here, while the husk blows away.
Wow! That's a neat way of separating wheat from husk.
So, do you sell the grains in the market once they have been cleaned?
Yes, sometimes. However, we also have a grinding unit on our farm. So we're able to sell finished wheat flour or atta in the market. This is our small wheat grinding machine. Cleaned wheat grains are poured in from the top of the machine. The machine grinds the wheat into a fine powder or flour, which comes out from this opening and collects at the bottom in these large bags.
And then this flour is packaged and taken away to sell in the market?
Not right away. There is one final step that needs to be completed before it can be sold. You see, this machine grinds the wheat quite well, but there are still some thicker pieces or granules in the flour that need to be separated and thrown away. This is called the wheat bran. Can you guess how this is separated from the wheat flour?
Well, it can't be winnowing since we don't want the flour to blow away in the wind.
That's right. Instead, the method we use to separate this is called sieving. Sieving is a method of separating substances that are of different sizes. For example, this wheat flour has some fine powdered wheat as well as some bigger impurities. When I put this through a sieve, the fine powder falls through the small holes in the sieve, while the thicker impurities remain as they are too big for these holes. And hence, the substances are separated. Once the wheat has been sieved, it is packaged and is ready to be sold in the market.
I didn't know so many steps have to be completed before we got to eat our rotis. Harvesting, threshing, winnowing, grinding, and sieving.
In this lesson, you learnt about various methods of separation. Now, you should be able to explain the reasons for separating substances. You will also be able to describe the methods for separation of substances, such as hand-picking, threshing, winnowing, and sieving.
O ayan mga bata, ngayong araw na to natutunan natin ang iba't ibang ways how to separate mixtures. I hope you will subscribe, share, and click the bell button para sa mga susunod pa nating episode. Sana nag-enjoy kayo sa ating pag-aaral ngayon. See you next time!